Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Atheists Having Cocktails with Christians. I'm super excited to see here with an old friend of mine from way back in the Ventura days, my buddy Chad Wiggens, who not only did we go to AHCWC together in 7th and 8th grade, we went to the same youth group for a little bit, and South Coast, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, South Coast. And then, so we've known each other off and on for quite a few years. And he's also the singer of Christian punk hardcore band Officer Negative. So I want to say thank you, Chad, for being on my show, man. I appreciate you doing it, bud.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for bringing me out of the woodwork.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been interesting, talking to a lot of, old Christian musicians and old friends that, that I haven't talked to in a long time. So yeah, it's a pretty fun show. If you haven't gotten to watch any yet, please do. I just got done last week doing Alan Aguirre from Scattered Few. So interesting,
cool.
Guy. It was a fun conversation. So this will be kind of my second non-metal interview, because most of the other ones have been guys from like Deliverance and the Crucified and Vengeance and all sorts of that. So
got it.
So yeah, so I'm stoked to talk to Chad, man. Haven't seen Chad in probably 25 years. It's been a while. So
yeah. How many interviews have you done?
I'm up to like 14, 15 right now. But like Roger's done, like Roger from Vengeance has done 3 with me. Jimmy's done 3. Greg from the Crucified, Jim from the Crucified. I just got doing this guy, Mr. David Prada from Martyr, who was a early Christian thrash band back in the mid 80s. What else did I do? So I just did Alan, You Now, a couple other ones. I did it was still one of my good friends from Ventura, my buddy Richard, who's still a hardcore Christian. I just did one with him as a friend, just kind of going back and forth, because he knew me like you knew me back when I was staunch believer, youth group Christian, all that. So yeah, I kind of walked away from it and in my teens, and then really kind of just went away from it and just haven't been part of it since probably my early 20s. So this is just kind of my idea, just to see where people are still at as they get older, if people, have changed, if they're still, doing what they do, and just kind of seeing the journey that I've had and that people that I've respected and friends have had. So, I mean, if it gets heavy, sometimes it does, but I mean, I'm not one of those, atheists that's like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a pretty chill guy. So, I mean, you have your belief system, I have mine, and it's just a conversation and catching up mostly. So tell me what you've been up to, man.
Got it. So you're not a Christian now. You're saying you're an atheist.
Very much so.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that story.
In a brief shell, man, like I grew up in the church, and there was always things in the church that bothered me. The fake healings, the tithings, a lot of the politics go within the church. You know what I'm talking about. I just felt, as a kid, I mean, I was 100% into it. But by the time I got to, probably about 14, my mom had taken me to, see like guys like Benny Hinn and all those just, extravagant liars. And I started questioning, and nobody would really give me answers that I was looking for, other than, it's faith. You have to just believe in God. And that just wasn't good enough for me. So then, I started reading, in my teens, I started reading books on some Hinduism and some Buddhism and just other, Satanism, not in the fact of, like devil worshiping, but like Anton LaVey, he was a humanist. He did not believe in a literal devil. There was no Satan. A lot of Christians perceive that the wrong way. When you say Satanist, they think, black masses and blood. It's nothing like that. Read a lot of Crowley, and just as I got older, I just really just kept shrugging pieces of Christianity off of me, because it just didn't fit me anymore. It just didn't make any sense of why I was doing this. And I know for a lot of years I was doing it because I was just hedging my bets and was afraid. I was like, well, if I do die, I'm going to go to hell. But then I just had to just get rid of that mindset. And for me personally, just say, I don't believe there's a heaven. I don't believe there's a hell. I don't believe there's a God. I don't know what else happens when we die. I can't say that for certain, but it just didn't make sense to me anymore. So, and especially, I mean, when we lived in Colorado Springs for a little time, our pastor was Ted Haggard. He was that pastor that got busted with all the homosexual stuff. And he was an anti-gay hardcore preacher, fire and brimstone, and just all the for me, if I was God and I had the power of God, I wouldn't let people represent my brand the way they do. You know what I mean? If I was in charge of a multi-billion-dollar corporation and I saw all these people fucking up my shit, I would show myself and make sure that I was running my ship smoothly. So for me, the evidence historically and everything, just from what I've studied, just to me, it does not make sense.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that is an amazing attribute that I believe that God allows himself to be tainted when Christians mess up.
Mm-hmm.
There's theology behind it that God's more interested in the person allowing them to get exposed because he loves them so much, because that's the path to redemption is darkness, light comes out of the darkness. And that's from the story of the Bible from beginning of time, right? So the creation story, and that's the human experience. The most strength usually only comes through pain. Clarity usually only comes through uncertainty and challenges, and gold is refined by fire. Everything that we do in life, anything good that comes in life is through struggle and pain and conflict, and then getting through it to the other side. And it's definitely a part of theology where you question, like, I wouldn't want to allow that to happen, because then humans blame God for that.
And that's the thing. I've had so many people out there like, you're just mad at God. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at God. I don't believe that he exists. I do believe that if there was the big question, really boils down to is, then is God perfect or is God, incapable? You know what I mean? So he can't be perfect and incapable and limited by whatever restrictions, because he's God. You know what I mean? Right. So therefore, is he really a loving God? If like I was saying this to another guest, you have children, I have children. I never created my children in the thought process of they're going to worship me and do what I say, and I'm going to give them free will. But if they don't do it, then I'm just going to punish the hell out of them. I want the best for my kids. I would never put these kind of things in, especially if he's a God of love and ultimate, the universe. I mean, that's when you think about the ginormic, just possibility of what's out there. We don't even know what's, half, 75% of our Earth. We don't know how, 75% of our brain works. There's so much more, I think, in this human existence that if we focused on, here and here, we're going to, very Hindu, where, you're taking the 108 steps to enlightenment, to where you're working on, this level, to where I think when Jesus was talking about that, I don't think because Jesus was a Jew, there was no Christianity before him. I think, especially, the story is, for him, being gone at 12 till 30, I think, if he was a real person, he was traveling and as some sort of, maybe not a witch doctor, but maybe a shaman of some sort, a rabbi, and especially coming from where he lived, he would have so many other influences, because Christianity's 20 or 2,000 plus years old. Hinduism dates back to 6,000 years old. So I think there's a lot of Hinduism in what I've read and what Jesus says, and that's just the interpretation that I've taken from. So
there's definitely a lot of Eastern philosophy in Judaism and Christianity, the foundations of it, right? And Christianity is part of Judaism, so you can't, like, it would be a misunderstanding to say that Christianity, even though, yes, this is a true statement, Christianity is 2,000 years old, but it originates from our belief system would be the beginning of time, right? And it borrows all of Judaism, which is Eastern, a lot of Eastern philosophies into the New Testament, into the Christianity. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, we got a little heavy real quick, but tell me about your journey, man. Like, what have you been up to? I mean, are you still doing bands? Are you still active in church? I mean, where's your journey taking you?
Just before I get into that, I do appreciate the conflict and the struggle, what you're talking about with like children and how you would anticipate what God would do based on your experiences as being a father. And so, I mean, right now I have a 26-year-old son who's a homeless heroin addict and has been for years. And he's struggled since 14 or 15 years old, ever since his mom and I divorced when he was like 12. And he just got so angry. Like I've never experienced the level of anger in a human. Well, yeah, both in a human and definitely someone that I'm connected with, and learning with the rejection. Like my son doesn't want to have anything to do with me right now. Hates me.
Oh man.
And so as a loving father, and he steals and he does all kinds of bad stuff, even from his own family, as a
like that too.
Yeah. Not an uncommon story that I'm going through, as a father.
It's your story, and and pain is pain. And, when you love somebody and try to do the best for them and help them, I mean, and they reject that, it's heartbreaking. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just, you have to let them go. And I think getting, come back to the theology part, like, God letting his children, if you want to say it that way, letting them choose to decide if they want to be with him or not, right? And we get to decide that, because he doesn't create robots. He doesn't force us to have a relationship with him. And then how there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on in the world. And so as a Christian, how do you wrestle with that? And a perfect God, I believe that God is perfect. And so, like, how do you grapple with the such horrors in the world today, right? And even in the Israel and Palestine conflict right now, I mean, those are such heavy subjects, and I get it. I get the struggle. I get not being able to wrap your mind around that, and you can kind of really go back and forth with that. So, anyways, just a little bit more into that subject, but into what I've been doing. So when the band broke up, when the band kicked me out, when all the other band members kicked me out of the band, and then we broke up.
Did you start the band?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they continue under the same name, or was it a different name? Or
so Officer Negative, we put out 2 albums and a couple EPs and live album under Officer Negative. And there were some band member. There's only, original was only me. And then during the first, not right before, me and Casey, the bass player, were the 2 original band members from before our first album, and then all the way through. And he was only 15 when he joined the band, and by the time we broke up, he was 20, something around 20.
Oh, wow.
But then we started writing different music. So we had two different bands. We had Officer Negative and we had the Death Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Death Campaign got signed to Solid State Records,
Mm-hmm.
which Tooth and Nail owned Solid State. And we got signed as the Death Campaign, and then recorded. And then right before the album was released, the band members kicked me out of the band, and then continued on as the Death Campaign. And then Casey, who was a bass player, became the singer. The vocals. And
so what was the reason for?
I did some stuff that wasn't good.
Okay.
Like, it's basically my fault. I did some stuff that, well.
Hey, this is a confessional, man. I'm not prying for dirt. That's not what I'm doing.
No, I think those are the best kind of interviews. I'm all good.
Right. As long as you're open to the sharing, it's not like I'm trying to pull that kind of stuff out. You know what I mean?
No, the good news is we've all reconciled. So, like,
nice.
I've apologized a handful of times. Every single one of them, they've forgiven me. There's a lot of neat redemption stories. Cool. In the end. But yeah, so, my side of the story is hey, I was married with my son, my first wife and my son, and all the other guys were living at home with mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, we have an opportunity to tour, but I have to, at the time, my nut to crack was $3,000 a month.
I hear you.
And I said, so, like, you guys are good with, like, the first 3,000 coming to me, and then, like, what's left over, you guys can share. Mm-hmm. They were all down for it. And we did about 2 years of kind of nonstop touring.
Oh, wow.
But we would come home with, I literally one of the straws that broke the camel's back was we came home from touring for 3 months, and then dropped off, I think, Roger and one other, maybe Roger and Casey, Roger and someone in San Francisco, and, like, handed them $20. And I was, because we just went totally broke. Basically, just the tour just paid for itself.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I had the money to pay for anything, or make all the bills that, like, third month or whatever. So I got into IT when I was right out of high school. I was doing the band thing and went through the Microsoft engineer program when I was 18, 19. And so I was doing band stuff and then doing IT work. And so I would come home and get an IT job and be able to make things work.
Yeah.
And, most of them were, like, working at, like, a skate shop or, mm-hmm. Or not working or whatever. And they kind of didn't really need to. Yeah. But, they wanted gas money and car insurance or whatever. So, and then we got signed to Tooth and Nail, or Solid State. But then my first wife at the time, she really wanted fake boobs. Mm-hmm. And so I went into debt. Yep. And did that for her. That's one of the number one signs when your wife is leaving you, is when they ask you to get fake. I have 2 other friends that the same thing happened. Wife gets fake boobs.
Man. My wife got her boobs done years ago, and this September we'll been married 25 years. So
yeah, well, there you go. Well, sometimes it works. It didn't work out. It didn't work out for me.
A couple of make you or break you.
And my wife showed up to a show or whatever with the brand new set, while the band members are not getting any money. And
I can see that.
I could see it too. That sealed the deal.
I can see that. See, I mean,
and it was a last ditch. It was one of the last ditch efforts for me. That process. Doing a lot of. I've actually went to a lot of therapy and counseling to figure out what I was really thinking as a young man and sabotaging.
Yeah, man, you were thinking about taking care of your family. That's what it was. And whether it was a healthy decision or not, man, I don't think there was anything other than just trying to make your lady happy and make things work. You know what I mean?
It was one of the last efforts to like keep the family, thinking I'm gonna keep the family. We were super volatile, wasn't good at all, and she was really banging down the door, and I caved, and I shouldn't have caved, and then it probably was. Band was probably going to break up anyways because of or maybe pause for a couple of years to let the album come out, then maybe do tour support or whatever. So that's that, and then so kind of once that happened, and I'm not really a musician. My whole reason for doing Officer Negative Death Campaign was to share the love of Jesus, and I had a real heart for.
Wait a minute! I remember you being a really good guitar player, man.
No, you totally don't.
What was that girl's house? She used to have like a thing on Friday nights, like a little youth group thing. She'd have people over, and I used to go to it every now and then. The last time I saw you, it was like you were long hair and playing, like guitar and your Beatle and I mean, it was one of those things. That was about the time when I was kind of like was done going to youth groups and all the like, let's go to Carl's house and have punch, where I was getting into metal and punk rock the way I'd been into. Like I was going to shows in Oxnard and Hollywood and going out and being nuts. You know what I mean? So. But I always remember you being a pretty decent guitar player. But
I mean, I knew to play like worship song G, C, D, E. Yeah. Like I know that, but I couldn't. I don't have very good timing. That was always the pain in our band. I would be off time and on a whole different pattern. Oh, yeah. Maybe like if you're looking at me going, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" Oh, yeah. And so, I was more into just all the throwaway kids in Ventura and Southern California, just really struggling. And I wanted to bring the love of God to them and see if that worked for them. And there's a lot of great stories and testimonies of people changing their life around and kids changing their life around. I still get emails and messages here and there from people all over.
Cool.
So, but anyway, so once the band broke up, and then I had I had a pretty good IT job at the time. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm gonna let that go a little bit and just focus on my family and work. And so then just did the IT route for the last 23 years. So
I'll be 48 this year, and I stopped playing in bands about 9 years ago. I was in a punk band called Out of Step for a while, which was just kind of crassy, whatever. It was cool. The biggest band I was in was I was in an Irish punk band like Dropkick called Brass Knuckle Choir out here in Kansas City, and same kind of thing you're talking about with guys and the straw was. I always made pretty decent money, so like I was always able to like buy the merch. I had the Suburban to haul all the gear in, and that kind of stuff. So we got looked at. My guitar player Sweeney had a friend here in Kansas City that worked for Sony Music, and so we had a very basic demo, so 3 songs, and he gave it to Chip, and Chip gave it to Hellcat, and Hellcat was interested at the time. They wanted 150 days. They would have recorded us. We would have made nothing off the record, and 150 dates a year for touring with very little support. But everybody was like freaking out. I'm like, man, if we can do it right, where we do it like 30, 40 days and we come home for 3 months, Then we're out 30, 40 days, come home for a month and do the rest of the tour. But just nobody had the guts to do it. Everyone, and I get it, I mean, I was a dad at the time. My daughter would have been 4 at that time. And our third singer, no, this was our second singer. Yeah, this was with our second singer. And, he just couldn't do it. He couldn't make it work. And so, I mean, that was the only time I ever got close to getting signed, other than, but we got to play with amazing bands over the years. I mean, I've played with Agnostic Front, I've played with Earth Crisis, Blood for Blood, Terror. In my Oi band, we played with Blitz, we played with Oxymoron, we played with oh shit. I mean, there's too many in the business, man. Mickey Fitz ended up being a good buddy of mine over the years. You know what I mean? So we got to play with a lot of really cool bands, but that was the two things that I missed out on in my music career, because I'm pretty much done, man. I'm too old and comfortable now. I'm like, there's no way I'm sleeping in the fucking van. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. So, but yeah, never got to make it. We did put out a CD, but it was mixed so horribly. Like, I won't even listen to this day. I mean, it's just it's so bad. And I mean, we played a big Oi festival in Atlanta, which was awesome. And the only other good thing was, it's actually on my channel. This person did a 4-part documentary on subcultures, where it was skinhead, straight edge, black metal, and zealots. And he used us in the music and in the show. So it was cool. But yeah, I never got to put out an album or go on a real tour, which is the two things that I missed out on. But, I had a blast in the years playing, you know what I mean? A lot of friends, a lot of cool stories, a lot of craziness. So it was, I don't regret it. I just wish those were the two things I could have done.
Yeah, there's some cool there's definitely highlights from touring. One of the neat highlights is Casey, the bass player, met his wife at 18 in Florida, and they dated for years and years, from California to Florida, and then they're married and have a great life. And so, like, one of the neat things, like, I don't know if he would have ever met his wife if he wasn't some Christian punk kid from Ventura sleeping in a van in Florida, Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And then the Solid State released Since We Broke Up, and then they tried to make a run for it, but they couldn't keep it going. Solid State called and asked me, hey, can we release it under Officer Negative, the Death Campaign project? And so that's how it's released. So, like, all over, all over Spotify and whatever, you'll see, you look up Officer Negative, and it's all metal. It's a metal album.
Yeah. I've listened to both. They're both great records. You know what I mean? They're both, like, the first one just reminds me of, early, mid 90s Southern California punk rock. You know what I mean? And the other one is definitely more of a metal. Like, oh man, it's kind of like when 90 Pound Wuss did their second record, and it was like way heavier. And you're like, whoa, all right, what's going on with this? But they're both great records.
We started playing a lot and many tours with No Innocent Victim.
Oh yeah.
And so Zombie Nation, our second album, was heavily influenced on just a heavier punk sound. Yeah. And then once kind of those band members went away, and then we got all new ones, they were definitely into heavier music. And so no one was writing like punk, even if it was like heavy punk. Yeah. They were writing like, the metal stuff, with more of like a crust influence, like the Death Campaign. You can still hear you can hear a
lot of Discharge in there, or so I can't remember the other way. Not Aus Rotten. Yeah, kind of Aus Rotten a bit, but yeah, it definitely has that crusty metal, punk vibe to it. Maybe a little Broken Bones mixed in there.
There were no breakdowns. We were not a breakdown band.
Yeah.
We slowed it down. It was like there was sludgy parts, but there was no breakdowns. So that was one of our rules. It's like, all right, if we're gonna do this metal thing, we're not doing breakdowns.
Yeah, after my I was in a hardcore band called Bully Rag, which was fun, and that lasted about a year. And then I did. My last band was a just straight up hardcore band called One Blood. Breakdowns. Like we played with Hoods a bunch of times, and Donnybrook and Rhinoceros, and a lot of the FSU guys, friends of mine from LA, and a lot of those dudes. And we had lots of breakdowns just because at that time that's what everybody they were just waiting for the breakdown. You know what I mean? So, but that got old quick. So, it was after about, and then our guitar player, he left to do a band, but then got in a car wreck and died. And so we had another guy come in, and his brother came in. We had two vocalists, and I was just bored playing it. I couldn't do it anymore. So we broke up, and our last show was in 2010. So shit, 12 years. Fuck, it's been 12 years since I've been in a band then. So
yeah,
a while, but
I can handle breakdowns when it's the early straight edge style of music. Casey, bass player, had a band called Hit the Deck. They got that band, They got really popular in like Ventura, Southern California. Put out an EP. It's awesome. It's like one of the best like early straight edge style EPs or albums out. I love that. So I think there's a way to do it without being too bro about it.
That's a lot of the problem that we were having was, at the time we were playing, we were playing with a ton of FSU bands, and just the shows got too violent, you know what I mean?
Right.
It just, it just fight after fight after fight, and at the time I dug it because I still, I loved fighting back then. It was fun, but now I'm just looking back on, man, we alienated so many kids that just were new to the scene who didn't know the proper etiquette.
Right.
It could have been so much nicer. These people could have been so much nicer where you actually had, a really thriving scene. I mean, we were lucky here in Kansas City. We had our place called the Altorion Ballroom, which was an old place, been around since like the 30s, and punk hardcore venue from 99 till about 2010. And man, it was like our CBGBs, man. We played with everybody there. We were always there. You know what I mean? So, I mean, shows, a lot of metalcore in the 2000s, like, Norma Jean and all this, the shit I'm not into, I mean, I'd go to the show because my buddy ran the place. I never paid to get in. So I'd just be like, all right, cool, man. I'd leave, but, everybody just in that time with all the breakdowns and the broness, it just got way too like, oh, you fuck with me, fuck with my boys. Like, dude, if you can't handle it on your own, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that was one of the bigger beefs I had with hardcore at the time, was just all the violence, man. It's like, dude, okay, somebody whacked you on accident, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, there's four dudes fucking, stomping one kid. It wasn't cool. I was over that.
Once the hardcore gangs started popping up in Southern California, I was like, okay, guys, come on. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're literally beating up our own. That's so weird.
Yeah, you're beating the crap out of a kid who paid money to see you and will probably never want to come see you again.
Yeah.
So not only did you lose a fan and maybe a merch, shirt or something, but also you made somebody not want to be part of something that could have been fun for everybody. And I'm not saying shit doesn't happen, I mean, fights happen, that's one thing, but the swarms and the beatdowns, it's like when Boston Beatdown came out and everybody was like, oh man, let's watch it. I was watching it. Like, I was like, yeah, dude, I'd be mad as hell if I was from Boston, because Boston sucks, I've been to Boston. It's a dirty, mean town, dude. I was like, no wonder these guys are so angry all the time. But yeah, the whole just, and, I was just like, man, I'm too old for this. Some kid's going to get hurt someday severely. Well, shit, there was that article, this would have been in 08 or 09, where, that one of those dudes from FSU got fucking stabbed and killed at a show with a machete in Arizona. Beef started between two crews, and next thing you know, one dude's been fucking sliced open with a machete. It's like, this isn't hardcore, man. This isn't punk anymore, man. This is gang shit. Over what? Over music? At least make some money if you're doing some gang shit.
Well, machetes, that's the MS-13 way. So someone was hooked into something.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I like the Norma Jean first album. When that first came out, I feel like they were somewhat of a trendsetter. I know some people say they ripped off maybe Earth Crisis or something like that, or they were in that Earth Crisis vein or something. I think that's what they said. I don't know. I could be totally off, but that first Norma Jean felt like the first Zayo album. When I first heard Zayo, you were just like, whoa, what is this stuff? For me, like how I was raised in the scene that I was in when Zayo came out, I was just like, dude, these guys are amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my guitar player from Bully Rag was big into As I Lay Dying and Zayo, and I appreciate the music. You know, and it doesn't matter what your stance, vocally is.
Right.
It's good music. It's good music.
Actually, I did not like Zayo's vocals when it first came out. I was like, this is the fakest crap I've ever heard in my life, because I was always used to like real vocals, like in the punk and the hardcore scene, that especially in hardcore in Southern California, was all like you could hear the real anger and someone actually like really yelling. And then when Zayo first came out, it was like he's like whispering. What is going on right now? And then I went and saw him live. I'm like, oh no, he's yelling. That's just his. That's how he yells. But
we played with a band from Oxnard quite a few years ago. They were called the Warriors. Are you familiar with them?
Oh yeah. Warriors are rad.
My buddy let me the CD, or played me the CD. I'd never heard of him. We were driving to the show, and he's like, "Oh, we're playing with this band. I've seen them. They're awesome." And I hit the CD, and I wasn't into it. And we played with them live, and I was like, "Wow!" But then they re-recorded their first CD, and the levels were right, and you could hear it correctly. And I was like, "Yeah, man, Warriors were." We played with them 2 or 3 times. They were super fun band. Super fun. Talented.
They were like an early straight edge kind of scene music, right? That's what they were.
But they were talented. I'm not sure if they're from Ventura. I think they're called Morning Again. Somebody told me they were from Ventura, no, it's not Half Heart. They're not from Ventura. I think, Morning Again, and they're melodic and heavy and acoustic, and man, it's one of the best albums I've heard in years. It was refreshing to hear something new and hardcore. It's not like this same 1 2 3 4 formula for the song. These guys, it was acoustic, and the kid could scream, he could growl, he could do everything, and I was like, man, that really kind of made me go, man, I miss playing in a band. I miss not even so much shows or whatnot. I just miss the creativity of hanging out with your buddies and like, oh man, that was a cool riff. What did you do? Let's work on that. Just the process was always the funnest for me.
I'm looking it up right now. What do you think of the new band? New Christian band. And it's like a mix of like, that's Holy Name. The band's name's Holy Name, and it's the guy from Slipknot. What's that?
Well, there's that douche, the guy from Korn that became
Korn. So it's him, and it's a couple guys from Screaming Giant, and someone else. You should check it out. It's music I'm never. It's a real blend. When you said like acoustic and a kind of real big blend of different heavy music, it'd be interesting to hear.
I don't respect that guy. I watched his documentary, and the only reason he's back in Korn is because he's broke. That's it. You know what I mean?
Like, I didn't know he was back in Korn.
Yeah, he's back in Korn, and that guy's a fucking joke, man. Fuck him, fuck his band. I'm not. I mean, believe me.
I don't know. I didn't watch the documentary. I actually don't know.
They're still old school Simon enough. Where, like, if we were face to face, I'd be like, dude, I would just love to smack the shit out of you. You know what I mean? Like, you're a poser. I hated Korn. I hate nu metal. I fucking hate nu metal.
Right.
Biscuit and Disturbed and all that crap, man. Like, I was not a Hot Topic kid. I used to go to Wild Planet when it was there. You know what I mean? And find real punk rock stuff. So. I was like,
I don't think if Korn came on, I would even know what their music sounds like, because I don't even. You're right, like the whole Limp Bizkit, that whole thing, that was so like lame.
Well, I was working after I got out of school because I graduated in early because I ended up doing some juvie time. So got out early and then worked at the Ventura Theater for quite a while. And I remember when Korn came through back in like 94, 95 before they got signed, or maybe 93, 94. And I hadn't heard of them yet. And I thought they were interesting at the time. But then when their album came out, it sounded nothing like it. He had bagpipes. So I was like, oh, that's cool. How can you do bagpipes with hardcore? But then after that record and all the Adidas and the weirdness, and I was just like, what the fuck is this crap? So, yeah, that new metal stuff, never appealed to me. A lot of the new, like the hair, the white belt swoop haired metal stuff. I couldn't. I'm an old school grindcore dude. Like I love Napalm and Obituary and Carcass. Like those bands were extreme and good. These kids were just fashion core, what I called it. You know what I mean? Not saying they couldn't play. What's that band? They're from 20 minutes away from here. They're huge. Coalesce. They're from like 20 minutes away from where I live. Super nice guys. Well, hung out with them a ton. Can't stand their music. Not my thing. It's too chaotic. Math metal is like, it's just too chaotic for me. I like groove. I like, structure. I like, not that it's got to be boring, throw new stuff in, but that just noodly, just crazy, weird rush timing and shit. I'm just like, it overloads my senses. I can't do it.
Are you familiar with the record label New Elite Standard? It's a death metal. So our drummer got really into death metal. It's not a Christian label at all. New Standard Elite, I think that's what it is. They become like the standard in death metal. Like all the new, not all, but a lot of the new popular death metal bands. I mean, I don't know if death metal is popular.
In Kansas City, it's huge, man. We have way more metal shows than we have anything here.
Standard.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, new Standard Elite. You should check them out. They're like, all their bands are like real, not fake, not fashion. Like it's like real metal. But I mean, for me, a lot of it's so hard to listen to.
It can be.
It can, because it's just so much.
It can be. It can be. So there's I've talked with other guests, and I don't think that it's weird because like it's so weird that Christian punk and metal and hardcore exist because it's such a secular idea. You know what I mean? It comes from punk rock with aggression and fuck authority and all this. So I'm not saying there can't be. The only one musical style I say will never be Christian. You can't make it Christian is Christian black metal. I don't believe it exists. I think it's bullshit. I think that black metal is a very specific style of music created in an area that was very anti-Christian, and it was for pagan use and all these, frost like ashes and all this other bullshit. They're wearing the corpse paint. I'm like, I'm going to say, I don't care if you agree with me. There is no such thing as white black metal or Christian unblack metal or whatever the fuck it is. It's dumb. It's a dumb idea. Stop it. Let black metal be black metal. If you don't agree with it, don't listen to it. But don't take something that is very much pagan and try and turn it into a Christian thing.
Why not? We do it all the time.
I know. I get punk rock. I get metal. I mean, like death metal. There's so much, things in the Bible that you can sing about death metal. Punk rock. I get it. There's the angst. The
Golgotha. There's a lot of death in the Bible.
Yeah. So for death metal, I get it. But when all these, like we are the unblack metal. I'm like, we're in the face can of the corpse paint. That means something. There's symbology in everything those bands did. To rip it off to make it something that it's not, I think it's just the most poser thing in the world. Like, dude, just be like, I'm a Christian, but I like black metal. I'm an atheist. I still like Christian metal. I still listen, to Christian punk rock, and I love Deicide. Doesn't mean that I believe in Satan. You know what I mean? So just enjoy the music, people. Stop saying, well, is this guy Christian? If you dig it, dig it. If it fucking bothers you, stop listening to it.
Yeah, and I think for me, the Christian aspect of punk rock is all rebellion. And so
Exactly.
for me, it was rebelling against the world, rebelling against the culture that um, I believe was capturing young people and like changing their life for the worst.
Mhm.
So when I would go to punk shows and see 14-year-old girls just totally wasted and dudes
Yeah.
taking advantage of them
Yeah.
because they're in the drunk punk
Yep.
scene, like I was like, this is terrible. This is not good. There's a better way. There's a better way to live. And so my rebellion was rebellion against um, turning kids into like terrible experiences and
Yeah.
life that was not good for them, and making it cool. Like it was cool to be drunk. It was cool to be a heroin. I had
Control.
high school friends
Yeah,
that
that's why I
wanted to
never
be.
got into like I was in a punk band, but I was more like into like metal stuff. But you know,
Mm-hmm,
and I'm a drinker, and that kind of stuff. But yeah,
mm-hmm,
the I don't work. My place is a slob. There's PBR cans everywhere. I never got that. I could never
mm-hmm.
live that way. You know,
Right.
just I don't just working for beer money kind of shit. I'm just like, and luckily, like I said, growing up in Ventura and seeing shows in Hollywood, I got to see some of the sketchier ends of punk rock and metal and hardcore.
Mm-hmm,
Especially down when I was working in Hollywood in the mid '90s. Working at the Whiskey and the Roxy, and back then people don't realize how sketchy Hollywood was. It's really cleaned up since
mm-hmm,
last few times I've been out there compared to what it was when I was a kid. But seeing all
mm-hmm,
the drug addicts and the homeless and the
mm-hmm,
hookers and whatnot, it's like, man, that's just not a that's just. But not even in a godly way, but as a smart human being, going, that's not a healthy way to live. This is not how
mm-hmm.
you're supposed to live. You're supposed to be
Right.
better. You know.
Well, and I think, and someone could prove me wrong, that is really unique to the punk scene.
Mhm.
Like my experience of the metal and metal, I mean, like the old metal days, like Metallica and that
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
scene
yeah.
was definitely, well,
Fine.
that came out of the punk scene, right? So it still had that San Francisco, Haight Ashbury, that whole, um, but in the mid to late 90s, felt like the metal and hardcore scene was um, cleaned up. It wasn't fuck the authority, fuck
Yeah,
the government, fuck the church, fuck you, fuck your parents. It wasn't that,
yeah.
because that was punk. Like metal and hardcore was
Hmm.
way different. And so I think the the punk has that
Yeah, it has that
has
rebellion middle finger to anything. It doesn't matter what it
right,
is. It's anti everything. No matter whatever you want the rebellion to be, it can be there. You know.
right,
How
right.
did Let me ask you this, because all the other guys I've talked to that have been in bands and whatnot, and I've never had anybody yet say anything good about the Christian music industry. How did Solid State treat you guys? Were you treated fairly?
Yeah, they treated awesome. That's
Did
awesome.
they?
Yeah.
I mean, records, all that kind of stuff. Like you got paid, like whatever your agreement was. They,
So
they didn't try and like screw you or anything like that.
so I've just, I don't know, maybe I've always had this idea of the long game approach,
Mhm.
and we accepted no money up front, and it was all I think we had one of the best contracts from Solid State and Tooth and Nail, because we didn't accept any money up front, and it was all based on points and album sales.
Mhm.
And so I had the belief that we were going to take over the world,
Of
and
course.
and because at one point, Officer Negative in the punk scene, like our record label, Screaming Giant Records at the time, was like, dude, I could sell like a bottle of piss and have like Chad Wiggens, Officer Negative name on it, and it would sell. Like you guys, live. So I experienced like uh, a Christian record label, a guy, Kendall, who lived in Orange County and just wanted to he owned a construction company, just wanted to put some money behind Christian punk bands.
Mhm.
He's the guy that started G Rock TV. I don't know if you
Okay,
remember
yeah,
that
yeah. The
TV show.
sport.
Yes.
I think that's where the first time I saw your video was.
Right.
I was at a friend's house and he was watching it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" You know? And I was like, and I didn't at first. I was like, "That looks like my friend Chad from Ventura." And he was like, "Chad Wiggens." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "No, that's Chad." I'm like, "No shit." So that was like the first time I saw. I was like, "He's punk rock. All right, cool."
Yeah. Yeah. I did go from hippie to punk rock my junior year in high school.
Right decision.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's the reason why. That's part of the reason why Officer Negative exploded nationally and internationally. It was because G Rock was on TBN.
Yeah.
And TBN was everywhere. So every Saturday night, it was at first like every Saturday night G Rock was on, but then it was like I think it almost went to like 7 days a week. G Rock was on, and then every night our music was on the skate videos and snowboard videos, and our music video was in and out of the show. And so we just like, that's how we took off. And so when it came to signing with Solid State Records and Screaming Giant, he ended it. We get signed to Solid State. I was like, I don't need $50,000 up. We don't need 50,000. We did need $50,000 up front, but it was take their contracts were, here's $50,000, which is a ton of money.
Yeah.
Ton of money. I mean, they were just throwing money around at that time. And it's a 5-album contract, 0 points, or maybe like a penny or 5 cents an album if you were lucky. But here's 50 grand up front and a 5-album deal that you guys make 0 money on the albums. And I was like, how about 0 money up front? And we'll take
what we sell. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had like 30 points, like 30 cents. And I told people I would share like what we did. And they were just like, how did you get that? I'm like, well, yeah, that $100,000 that they were going to throw at you. We were like, nah, we'll just make it on the back end.
Well, if you really think about it, 50 grand for 5 albums between 4 members, that ain't shit.
It ain't nothing.
Compared to even, they always want to bullshit you and say, the recording costs. I get that, engineers cost money, studios cost time and whatnot. But by the end of the day, man, when you're basically spending 39 cents to make a fucking CD and they're spending, $17 on it, you're going to make your money back easily.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's always, again, but that's kind of the problem I have, not only with Christians, but the business in general is that, you would think that as a brother in Christ, yes, I want to make some money and I don't want to, I'm not going to do this for free, but you guys are the ones, creating it, I had Roger Martinez from Vengeance. I started talking with him a few years ago. And he hadn't been paid royalties in a long time. And he was sick at the time with cancer. His cancer came back, unfortunately, but dude, I spent, 6 months figuring out who owned the label, who owned the rights now, and was able to finally get him his royalty money,
That's awesome. Good for you.
And it was, 15 years in the making. So, and these people knew how to get him. Dude, I found Roger easy. You know what I mean? So like you people in California could have found him. They just didn't want to pay him, So that's my perspective of it. Can I be sued for libel or slander? Because that's my interpretation. Thank you.
I mean, I do see you're right. They should say, hey, we want to do what's best for you guys as well as what's best for us. And I mean, 10 cents an album. Come on, you can at least do 10 cents, 20 cents an album. Give me a break.
Yeah. Man, give me $1 an album. Come on, man. I mean,
right.
$1 for, it's like this. I'm not.
No. That's right. No, ours was $2.
Okay.
Sorry. No, that's what it was. This is 20 years ago. So I think ours contract was $2. And that's where the 2 points was like $2, because we didn't take the signing bonus. And one, because we sold 30,000 albums with Officer Negative. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, 50 grand. So what? Like we'll put this album out on one of the largest Christian record labels in the world, and we're touring nonstop. Like, dude, we'll sell 50,000 like a year and a half, like no problem. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, we'll get that money. we'll get that money back, and then we're going to start making more, and the next album and the next album. So like, but the bands, most of the bands that they're signing didn't have 5 years experience and weren't on G-Rock and selling thousands of albums. And so they're just like, this is our chance. Like, this is our chance to like have a chance. And instead of like negotiating maybe like 2 albums, 2+5 or 2+2. And, maybe, okay, you take the 50 grand and you give them 2 albums and then you blow up, and then, you're able to
renegotiate after that.
Right. Okay. I could see that. But yeah, dude, these bands were not smart at all. They're doing like 5-7 album contracts with like 0 points and with for 100,000. You're like, and you're complaining 3-4 years into it, like you're retarded. Like, sorry,
you have 3 years because you've already spent your money. That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for you to take that lump sum, like the lottery, blow it, and you still owe them. You know what I mean? Well, and that's the thing is that especially when you guys blew up, tooth and nail. Even though I wasn't a Christian, I still had some Christian friends. So I mean, like. They would always throw in, Plank Eye or, MXPX or the Supertones or Overcome, and don't get me wrong, there were some fucking good bands on Tooth and Nail.
For sure.
Unashamed. What's that one? Oh, to this day, Starflyer 59 is one of my favorite bands.
Oh, yeah.
Love that band.
Yeah.
So
trendsetters. I mean, they literally shaped music in the indie music scene, and so
they made it credible other than just cheesy, like there's people that'll reach out and be like, hey man, why don't you talk to this guy from this band? I'm like, why? They sucked. I didn't like them, even though I liked metal as a young kid, yes, Stryper was always the gateway drug to all metal and Christianity from, our kids our age. They're the marijuana of Christian
Not
music.
For me. First thing, my dad liked Stryper, and I was like, ugh.
But I was before Stryper, I was listening to fucking, Petra and Carmen and that stuff. I will say, even though Keith Green is not my jam, he's a hell of a piano player,
Dude, I was raised on Keith Green.
Same here.
For sure.
Steve Taylor, there's still old bands that I still really dig listening to, but, it's like when Tooth and Nail came out, it seemed to really, for me, and I was kind of happy for this, and I'm just speaking from my own perspective, that Tooth and Nail really focused more on the image and the art of the music, other than we have to have Jesus thrown into every song 3 times. You know what I mean? They were more flexible with what the artistic integrity of what the bands were doing.
Yeah, you didn't have to sing about Jesus at all on some of the stuff, and you couldn't be anti, and you probably couldn't cuss or whatever, because it probably wouldn't sell albums because they're so connected into.
Did you know Brandon?
A tiny bit, not much. So Chad Johnson, do you know who Chad Johnson is?
Name's familiar.
So he owned a Christian metal hardcore record label. I think he had As I Lay Dying on his. He would put out like the first As I Lay Dying. Not Face Down. So Tooth and Nail, Solid State bought Chad Johnson's record. We could like Google it for 2 seconds. We could find it. But Chad Johnson, Solid State bought Chad Johnson's record label, and he had really good up and coming metal hardcore bands on his label. And then so Chad Johnson went to go work for Solid State. And then I got to know Chad Johnson pretty well through all like the Christian music festival scene, like Cornerstone and whatnot. And then he went to go to Solid State. And then he was like, hey, we're looking for new bands. Would you guys be interested in signing? Would Death Campaign be interested in signing to Solid State? He would be a good guy for you to talk to, because he's now 3 or 4 years into doing this music festival called Furnace Fest. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of it.
It's in your area. It's in Arkansas.
It just happened. That's funny.
Yeah, September.
From school, and they were finally putting out Stavesacre's Friction on vinyl and a hardcore, one of the songs for the Penalty Box.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to be there and get the code to order it, but I couldn't go. So my buddy got me the codes and emailed them to me, that I was able to order them that way. So yeah, I did hear about it, but yeah, I heard about it like 2 weeks before it happened, and I was like, "There's no way I could make it." You know, yeah, it was, yeah, because Staves Acre was playing that. I wanted to go see Staves Acre.
So it's a music festival that's half Christian, half non-Christian,
Yeah,
and no Christian affiliation, no like preaching or whatever it is. It's just Christian bands, non-Christian bands, and he's the guy that's putting it on, and it's doing extremely well. It's like thousands and thousands of people are going to his festival. He would be a great guy to interview because he's been in the Christian music scene since like it kind of first started, and had a record label and the bands that he had, and went to work for
it's
Solid
such a
State.
brilliant marketing platform, man. I'm taking everybody's money. I just don't want the Christians or the non-Christians. Let's bring them together, man. Let's take everybody's money, you know, which is good. Hey, I am not opposed to people making money. You know what I mean? And if you have a good idea, it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's working out really well, and he's like resurrecting all these Christian bands because what I've heard and seen, there's basically no Christian scene anymore.
Last year they started doing something in Ohio. It's called Immortal Fest. Deliverance got back to play it because I'm still friends with Jimmy, the singer. I'm actually he lives in Vegas. I'm leaving for Vegas in the morning, and we'll be hanging out there. I'll go see Jimmy, but it's a lot of bands like White Cross and like that style of bands. You know what I mean? So, but he was telling me, man, last year they paid him very well and took really good care of him. And I don't know if you're a big Tourniquet fan, but Ted, the drummer, died last year. So, some rare complication. I don't know exactly what, but all the original guys are getting back together to do a set, which, I mean, that hasn't happened in shit since '93. So I was thinking about going because I was always a huge Tourniquet fan, but it's in the middle of fucking nowhere, Ohio, man. You know, it's like you got to fly to Cleveland and drive like 3 hours or some shit like that. So I'm like,
oh wow,
yeah, I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if I like it that much. You know, it's not like going to punk rock bowling where it's like I'm going to see 20 bands I want to see and have a great
time. Right. Yeah. So that Furnace Fest, that's why Staves Acre and Crucified, or not Crucified, but like Zao and MXPX and all those bands are playing, but then like all the same genre of like non-Christian bands are playing, and so yeah, he says it's like really taken off. I mean, you can tell like there's the pictures of it. There's probably 5,000 people in the audience per like set of like the bigger bands or whatever. So
yeah, I saw the advert when it first was coming out, and I was like, I was confused. I didn't know what kind of festival it was because I saw like MXPX. I'm like, yeah, but they've played with fucking everybody, you know.
Everybody, right? Yeah.
With, you know, but then I saw Staves Acre. I'm like, and then some other few Christian bands, and I was like, what kind of festival is this? So yeah, I mean, good for him, man. It's a great business plan. You know, it really is. Yeah. And I have never put on a fest, but I've put on shows before, and I know how much work and money goes into that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's a money pit for sure.
Yeah, either you're going to make it or you're going to be homeless on the street, fucking, you know, sucking down, you know, old sodas that you find, you know.
When I put on shows in Ventura, it was awesome because it was in the back of the warehouse at South Coast, and they let me. There was no cost.
Yeah.
So like 500 kids showed up, and it was like swimming in money. I'm like, this is amazing.
That's so fucking crazy that, you know, by the time I'm getting out of it, it's like when I was going to South Coast, you know, oh man, like I remember the youth pastor. I think his name was Steve.
Yeah, Steve Abraham.
Steve, yes. Man, he was always just riding my ass, you know, and just like, you know, I think I was the only person in the youth group at 15 to have a tattoo, you know what I mean? And I should have done that. And I listened to metal, and I would always try and like, you know, like, no, man, these guys are Christian. Listen to them, you know, pay attention to what they're saying. Like, these guys are awesome. And he would just always be like, no, you're wrong. You're serving the devil. He's in sheep's clothing. Like, he was always such a fucking asshole to me. I remember one time this was the last time I hung out with him. This was a cool gesture. He had a friend that worked at some Fender guitar manufacturing place in, I think, Thousand Oaks or like Reseda or someplace. And he's like, and he took me down there. And it was cool. I looked at how they made guitars and, the machinery and all that stuff. And because at that time I was just starting to learn how to play bass.
Mm.
And on the way back, I think I had like a Deliverance, or even, I think it was Crucified. I had one of the Crucified record CDs or cassettes in my Walkman, and I was listening to it. It's like, well, I'll let you put that on, and I put it in. 30 seconds into it, I'm not joking. He had the window rolled down. He took it out of the tape player and chucked it out the window. He goes, "You should not be listening to this." And I was like, "We're done, dude." I was like, "We're done." Yeah, and I was like 15 at the time. So that's when I stopped going there, and me and my family, we went over to a place called Coastline, which was much smaller. And just by that point, I was getting in trouble and did my stint in some juvenile hall for a while. And,
yeah.
And and by the time I came out of it, I was done, man. I had nothing left to and that's the thing. I'm not broken. I'm not, like, people ask, like, well, how do you feel? I think I've had such a better, more moral, because I don't believe, okay, let me say this again. I believe in ethics. I don't believe in morals, because I think morals come from a Christian base. I think morality is subjective to people, depending on what your circumstances is. But for me, I think ethics will always be the foundation of, this is an ethical move, yes, or it's not an ethical move. So for me, coming out and seeing everything, and just, for me, my ethics did not match with Christian morals anymore, where I think I've had such a more fulfilling, I'm a better parent than my parents ever were without the fire and brimstone. My children have never stepped once into a church, and they're healthy, they're smart, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that Christian kids aren't, but I didn't have to put this exaggerated fairy tale of fear and damnation for them to obey. I just taught them, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is how you act as a human being, this is what you do in interactions with other human beings to be a good person. And I think my life has been 1,000 times better since I've stopped being a believer.
It's interesting because one of the only times that Jesus talks about sin is based on fear. Mm-hmm. And what's that verse? Basically, it's like fear is the opposite of God. And all of the bad experience, well, not all, a lot of the bad experiences of Christianity in churches is based on fear. Mm-hmm. And it's not from God at all. And so how I was raised is, my parents were big time hippies, muling heroin and acid from San Francisco down to Ventura. And my dad was a professional surfer. And
shit.
Yeah, in the late 60s, early 70s. Cool. And shaping surfboards. And then they went to a Billy Graham crusade and were born again, and accepted Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior, and it totally changed their life in a really positive way. And they were totally in that hippie Jesus movement, where
Jesus, the churches that, and all that stuff.
Yeah, mm-hmm. where they learned, their churches were a hippie home church with like 20, 30 people, like learning about God and learning about the love of Jesus. And so, like, my whole upbringing was all about love. Like, there was no fear, really. I mean, yeah, we learned about hell and we learned about sin, the consequences of making bad decisions. And, but it was all in the root of love. Like, Jesus, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, not to condemn, but to save. Right. And so and that's been my heart from day one, is spreading the love of God, not the fear of God. Right. Or the fear, not, that's even wrong. Spreading the love of God, not the fear of man. Mm-hmm. And so when I hear those experiences from people, which there's millions and thousands of those experiences, right? You're just like, man, it's so it's so off from Jesus's message. So off. It has nothing to do with the love of Christ, the what Jesus said, what he came to do. And so when you hear,
I think that's the main problem, or not the main problem, but I mean, I think that's just, like I said, people are like, well, you can't be mad at don't be mad at God because of men. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at God. I'm mad at men because men are the one doing these things. You know what I mean? It's not God. Because if we do truly have free will, then they're the ones making the conscious decision to be charlatans, to be liars, to be whores, to be whatever the fuck you want to call. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I remember, the Ted Haggard thing. I was at work and, I remember as, 12, 13, because we lived in Colorado Springs a couple times, and both times we went to his church. And the last time I was 15, almost 15. Yeah, I was almost 15. And I'd always like sit next to my dad because my dad would pull me over and be like, don't listen to this crap. This is crap, And, Ted would always go on about, the anti-gay and blah, 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 blah. So years later, this is probably 2008, I'm sitting at work and my dad calls me like, turn on CNN. I'm like, what? And I turn on, I'm like, no shit, the story's breaking. I'm like, whoa, but it's that kind of, I don't think anybody should have in the church that kind of power. I don't think mega churches should exist, I mean, you're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and whatever, how much you're raking it in, 10% of everybody's fucking money. I said this to a pastor one time, and he got very pissed at me. I'm like, do you ever let your congregation audit you? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you ever open up your books maybe once a year and show the church, all right, man, this is how much we've brought in this year, and okay, with upkeep and salary, I get that, people have to eat and have to have clothing. They, well, maybe you don't need a $75,000 fucking amplifier speaker for your church. You know what I mean? So I'm like, have you ever opened up your let your church audit you? How much are you giving, to the homeless shelters, to women's, to anything, And he was like, I would never. He basically said, why would I let people who are not in God's position judge how I spend their money? I was like, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, thankfully I go to a church where once a year they have a full down to the penny, where all the money coming in, all the money going out, third party auditors. And so it creates a total trust. And it creates total trust with the congregation of like, okay. And it shows like, they give to all these international and local. They're really big into the local stuff too. So you're like, okay, I'm part of a good community. But I mean, that would be wild not to be part of a church where there's like no transparency on the money. Like, come on, you're just asking for something bad's going to happen.
Also, it seems like you're a pretty laid back guy, so you're probably going to a really cool laid back church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't think people, will ever understand the unless you've lived there and been part of it, the Southern California mindset. You know what I mean? It's a completely different mindset than the mindset out here in the Midwest. It's very, very tranquil, very earth, very, ocean and mountains and being one with nature. And, I'm not saying, there's not campers and shit out here, but I don't know. It's like, I don't know, man. I always want to say it's like everybody from California that I always hung out that I gravitated to were like Bodie from like Point Break. You know what I mean? Just kind of more spiritual and just kind of cool about things other than just being really uptight.
Yeah, so, I started going when I left South Coast through my divorce. Just wasn't feeling connected there anymore. I went to my grandma and grandpa's church, and I used to hate going to that church growing up because it was so opposite of how I was raised. I mean, it was very like bell choirs and like super traditional, and I'd just be like dying in there. And but the church is totally different now. Obviously, it's been like 60 years later. I lost my train of thought. Totally just.
Okay, you were leaving South Coast and we're going to your grandparents' church.
Yeah.
They were not. They were like pretty staunch, and then they're not so traditional anymore.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah. Thank you. Um, so we have a really mix of like young people all the way to blue hairs, and so I go in flip flops and board shorts and tank tops, like
Nice.
covered in tattoos and
Yep.
um and yeah, it's just I think so. I've never experienced like the Bible Belt before, like,
Yeah.
and so but it's real, and I've heard lots of stories. And my wife was raised from uh, they from like Oklahoma, Texas area, so like Southern
Oh
Baptist.
man, I'm right in it.
Yeah, that's Southern Baptist,
Yeah,
very traditional.
evangelical, craziness. Yeah. Literally, an hour from here is the that. Well, he's dead now, but the Fred Phelps Church, the guy that always pickets homosexuals and the biker, the soldiers' deaths. Fred Phelps.
I don't know.
Oh, you've never heard of Fred Phelps? Oh man, this guy was a
Mm.
psycho. What the hell was his church called? He was always the one picketing, send AIDS to fags and oh no, seriously. And then when soldiers were like during 9/11, like he was always protesting soldiers' funerals, like God hates the military and just crazy shit. Yeah, Fred Phelps. I can't remember what Universal Life Church. That's in San Francisco. Uh, anyway, that kind of crazy fundamentalism. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, his organization's 45 minutes away from where I live. So yeah,
Got
we
it.
deal with a lot of out in this area, a lot of Chiefs fans and Christians.
You said Chiefs fans and
Yeah, everyone's always like, "Do you like football?" I don't watch football. I've never watched football in a day of my life. I don't give a shit about football. So it's always like,
I married my wife's from Ventura, but she went to Oklahoma. So
oh
whether
God.
whether I like it or not, I'm a Sooners fan. So I'm married in every Saturday during football season. I've known more about football in the last 8 years
Nice.
than I ever have.
Nice.
I went from not knowing what a first down was to like, oh, I know who Baker Mayfield is, the quarterback.
Yeah. It was never my thing. I was never a jock. I was always, into skateboarding
Totally.
and music and that kind of going to Silver Strand. I was never a good surfer. I could surf a little bit, but I was never good at it. But I enjoyed it. So that was just, the things I enjoyed growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say this. I will say, I did have I will say that there were a lot of fun things about church as a youth. Meeting new friends and uh, doing like overnight sleepovers at lock-ins at the church, doing the fun thing. But for me, a lot of the problem is too is that at 11 and 10, and they're telling you need to go out and witness for Christ. It's like, what the hell does an 11-year-old going to be able? I mean, they would have us walk up to some 30-year-old like, the Holy Spirit's telling me that I need to talk to you. It's such bullshit, man. It's fake. What is? How can an 11-year-old be a vessel for anything that doesn't know anything? If you don't know how to even interact with people or what your Bible says, how can you even be a vessel? You know what I mean? So, man, there were fun parts of the church, I will say, but looking back at it now, it's like, man, the indoctrination, the responsibility you're putting on kids that don't even know their own mind or their own body yet, and you're trying to make these kids go out and be soldiers for you. I mean, it's no different than in my opinion, no, those kids in Iraq have to go out and be a bomb for some religious nut bar. You're putting kids in harm's way because they don't know what they're doing. They're not equipped for those challenges.
Totally.
You know,
The yeah, it's got to all be rooted in love and the long game approach, right? Not the quick conversion, and not out of fear, and it's got to be out of love, or else it's not of God, it's of man. So
Exactly.
mm,
I've got about 10 minutes left before I got to get going and start getting ready to 6 a.m. for Vegas. Two really cool tour stories, man. Like one, what was like the biggest, coolest band you guys got to play with? Or, another, just give me a couple road stories of fun.
So Cornerstone was always the music. Did you ever know about Cornerstone?
I never got to, I always wanted to. In 2009, I heard the Crucified were getting back together for a show. Plus, Austrian Death Machine were playing. And I know it's the guy from As I Lay Dying, but I love that his project. And I was like, dude, I haven't seen the Crucified. They're back together. And I would have went if I could have found a hotel, but there was nothing. Like I found out like about 4 days before it happened. So I was like, man, I'm going to go. So I started calling around like, I'm not a camper, dude. I hate the wilderness. It's not my thing. So like the closest hotel I found was like an hour and 45 minutes away. And it just didn't work out. But yeah, I always wanted to go to Cornerstone. I just never got to.
So that was always the highlight of the year because it was like every band known to man. And so those are probably like the biggest bands that we played with were all those like the solid state bands at the time, all the Zayos and Norma Jeans. And what was that one band that was the first like sing hardcore band? They were humongous. They'd have thousands of people coming to see him under the tent. I forgot who it was. So that was always the highlight of the year. And then, so cool. One of the best stories is Casey, our bass player, would play pranks on bands that we would play with. They would open up for us or we would open up for them. And it was As I Lay Dying. It was the guitar player, one of the guitar players for bass player. it was a bass player for As I Lay Dying. He got icy hot spray, and he took the label off the icy hot spray and put the label on Gold Bond spray. On it. And he would convince bands to spray it on your undercarriage right before going on.
No chance.
Yeah, he's like, dude, it's the best thing. It's like angel kisses down there. Like it's all tingly and awesome. And they'd be like, oh, this is great. And they would just go to town spraying icy hot, not knowing it, all of them. And then right before they go on. So like 30 seconds, a minute later, they are in so much pain.
What are you going to do other than stopping and running off stage, man? What the hell are you going to do?
So they would just stand there with like the biggest wide eye in so much pain. And it lasts like a half hour or 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 30 minutes. And so we would just be dying on while one or two of them are just like, hating life. So
remember, Wiggens is a motherfucker, though. Remember that, Did you have a friend, or you guys were, or a brother or a sister, or somebody you were related to? Did they have a punk band called the Vexed, or the Hexed?
No,
the Virus.
The Head Noise was a band we would play with all the time.
No. This is okay. It was. We played with this punk band. The Hexed. Anyway, they were from Ventura or Oxnard, and somebody told me that they were related to you, and I'm like, no shit. But yeah, we had. I was just wondering if you ever heard about this.
My cousin Neil, he's a drummer, and he plays like right now he's in like the Bad Samaritans, and he's in all those like 90s like not Hellcat. What's Fat Records, like Fat Records band. He's played with all those bands, so it could have been him. But the tour, now I'm remembering, As I Lay Dying took us out on tour when we were the Death Campaign, and so we opened up like for a couple months for As I Lay Dying. That's why the icy hot where the Icy Hot story comes from. And it was right before they just went humongous. I mean, we were like literally seeing, a couple hundred kids show up to the show, and then like a month later, it was like 1,000 kids show up, and we are like, "Whoa, what is happening?" And then from there, they just like took over, the metal scene, opening up for Ozfest, and then he went to prison and all that whole story.
Oh man, I forgot about that. Didn't he kill his wife or some shit like that? Or
he paid.
Yeah, he was paying some. Whatever, man. Just walk away, dude. You know.
He, instead of paying, he paid an undercover cop instead of a bad guy. And went to prison for 5 years for it. He's out now.
Yeah.
They've done shows now and stuff, but his story is awesome.
Really?
He would be an amazing guy to interview.
I'm trying to reach out to more varied people, because like, other than a couple other people from other Christian metal bands that I like growing up that I've talked to, who I don't want to interview because we just wouldn't get along, this is, I'm trying to start my like more like 90s tooth and nail, kind of moving out of that subject. But again, I want to talk to Christians, because I mean that's my anti point of view is, I don't want to talk about atheists. If I want to have an atheist show, I'll just there's too many out there. You know what I mean? I can do that any day of the week in Christian shows. I want to blend the two. I want open dialogue. I want people to start, really, instead of just judging and being pissed at each other, man, just have open dialogue. Have a conversation. If it fits your life, it fits your life. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I think there's too many judgmental aspects on both sides. Too many egos, too many people thinking, I can believe what I believe, you can believe what you believe. Awesome. That's all there is to it.
Well, bad things happen when you stop having conversations, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I was asking that because anyway, there was some band called the Hexed or the Vexed or some punk band. This would have been probably 2006, 2007. Anyway, somebody told me that they were from Ventura, and I'm like, oh, and they knew you, but they were such assholes. We almost got into a fight with them. So, yeah, they're.
I've never heard of the band. So.
Okay. So then it must not be that band. It must be something else that I can't remember at this point in time. But what's up, little friend?
That's Bear.
Nice. Now, do you actually still live in Ventura proper?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Never take it for granted, my friend. I wish I was there every day.
Yeah, Phil, definitely. So I started an IT company right at the end of touring in 2002. And then been doing that in IT business for 23 years now. And that's so awesome. That's been like kind of the godsend for my life. So I just put all the creativity and hard work that I was doing in music, I just like refocused and channeled it into that. And so it's
do you guys ever think about maybe doing like a 30-year anniversary or something, a show, a tour, a vinyl? Do you have any vinyl?
Yeah, we released this guy asked us, what's the record label? It'd kill me. Was a record label, small record label, released our first Officer Negative album on vinyl. Okay. It's a bit like a 500 print or whatever. Did that. Daniel Osborne, who owns New Standard Elite, he was the drummer at the end of Officer Negative for a couple years, and then did the Death Campaign. He has a second Death Campaign album that we're starting to talk about maybe doing. We're talking about doing it where he.
Nice.
Oh, am I back?
Yep, you're back.
You back? Yeah. So maybe in the next year you'll see a second Death Campaign album.
Nice.
We've flirted with the idea. Maybe we'll play Furnace Fest, and that would be like our our thing time to get back. But I don't know. We'll see. I feel awkward thinking about like being on stage and like acting like I was 20 when I'm 46. Like when I see old dudes doing that, you're just like, oh yeah, bro, just hang it up. So,
yeah,
you know, I don't know.
Here a few months ago, and I didn't get to go, but I saw some footage and looking at leaving. I'm like, dude, it's time just to be done, man. Like,
right.
You look like Mr. Burns in a leather jacket. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
I get it, but just go. Just go. You'll always be leaving. We love you, man. Just know. We love you. Just go away.
And I mean, it would have to be the right thing, and it'd have to be the right event, right? Because I would want a lot of people there to like.
No, totally.
And like, I'm not gonna go and like there's 10 people going to your show. Like, there's like, well, and there's a lot of work. I mean, you know, the hours you got to put in to like get back up to speed and everything. Holy smokes! So
yeah, I've been picking up the bass lately because I've been working with Roger maybe on some new tunes for Vengeance, and I haven't played in like 10 years, man. You know, and I was like, I got no dexterity. I have no stamina. You know, I'm just like trying to like learn some of the songs. I'm like, okay, I got to put an ace rap on or something. You know, I completely understand. People don't understand how hard it is. You know, they think, oh, you're fucking rock star. No, man. The nights you spend rehearsing, writing, then the day of the show, man, you either got to leave work early and you got to load all your shit up, get in the van, unload it, load that shit up, wait all night. You know, then maybe get fucking paid if you get paid. Then load the shit back up. Then you either got to drive home or drive it back to the rehearsal spot and drop it off. So you're not getting home till 3, 4 in the morning. And you've been doing this all day and you've made $12.
Right. It's a young man's game.
Yeah. You know, that's it. You know, I mean, I make great money with what I'm doing. I'm just spoiled now. It's like, I think it was like, how much is my time worth? That's not worth my time anymore. You know, if I'm doing it for fun and for me, that's completely different. But if you're expecting me to give you a product, I'm going to get paid for it and what I want to get paid for. And if not, then we just can't do business together.
It's got to be a hobby. It's got to be something that you just love to do and a passion project, and you're just having a fun, good time, and that's what you're doing. It can't be a business unless you're a young person like building something and you've been
doing it forever. Your name has some sort of cachet.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly.
Cool, then it's easy, you know. But I don't know, man. I was so bad because last year I went and saw Ghost open up for Iron Maiden. I've never seen Maiden, always wanted to. Mm-hmm. And Bruce Dickinson at 70 is still kicking ass, man. He's 4 outfit changes, running around, huge flags, flamethrowers. I'm like, I'm just lazy. Like, this guy's just awesome. But that's his job. That's what he gets paid to do, you know? Mm-hmm. He can be in that state of mind all the time because he's been doing it for 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
Years, you know? So
he's making great money at it. So,
you know. All right, man. Kids. Hi, buddy. Man, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I bugged you so much. You know what I mean? But
no, I'm glad you did. It took me a long time to like work up to do this for some reason.
I get it, man. People are leery of the show because of what it's called, but that's where, you know, I say to all the people watching.
I didn't look you up I didn't know anything about it. So I just showed up. That's it.
On my page, there's all my interviews, but there's that little movie thing we were in. You need to check it out, man. It's interesting. It's skinhead movement, the black metal movement, the straight edge movement, and then the Christian zealot movement. So they have like Living Sacrifices on it, a few other bands. It's a cool little like hour and 20-minute documentary. Definitely check it out, man.
I will, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy.
You too, Simon. Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm going to be in Ventura probably this summer, man. I'll reach out. Let's grab a beer.
Yeah, totally. All right,
buddy. Take care.
All right, cool. See ya. Bye.